Phoenix in Tennessee.
Hello.
Hi. It says in the description, your question is, can the self meaningfully exist to any relevant degree without free will?
So
Interesting.
Cool. Okay.
Phoenix. This is a depressing topic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So
Although, I would say that,
go ahead.
like, I didn't include the word meaningfully in the question for a reason. And that's because I also question whether or not meaning exists.
Fair. Do you want to pose the question how you want to, and then maybe we can get into it?
Sure. I mean, it seems to me that free will, like, almost definitely doesn't exist from what I've looked into.
I know it sucks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But, I mean, like, in therapy, one of the main things that, like, I'm, like, encouraged to do is, like, figure out the story of my life and who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this question of, well, I mean, is individuality, like, just a glitch? I mean...
No, I think it's an evolutionary advantage. As you're taking in sense data, you need to make sense of that data to be able to make an informed action, and being able to make informed actions increases your likelihood of surviving, thriving, and passing on your genes. I think that act of processing that and contextualizing it to be able to make an informed decision is the emergent property of consciousness. And that's what we call it. So I think we can be conscious without free will. I just describe consciousness as that emergent property.
It's interesting that you're equating the self with consciousness.
True. I think I'm going based off of.
You don't?
Yeah, I see those as separate things.
Oh, interesting.
I think
Phoenix.
that the self is the idea of, like, like, your identity, who you are. And I think that consciousness is a matter of, like, being alive,
Interesting. Okay. So I think that we're going to get more traction on the identity piece than on the just being alive piece, because we're really quickly going to fall into whether or not plants are alive, and it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be as fun.
I actually thought that immediately after I said that word.
Yeah, it's not going to be as fun. But let's use identity, because the way I define identity is it's the story you tell yourself about yourself. It is an ongoing narrative that you are telling yourself about yourself, and I believe that that is what a person's identity is. So are you asking if that's relevant or if it can exist without free will? Like, what's your take here, or what do you want to, discuss?
I mean, sorry, can you, like, rephrase that?
Sure.
Can I take a stab at it? Because I think I have a specific question that I would love to build off of what you just said.
Go for it.
So if we, for the purposes of this conversation, talk about the self and identity as the story that you're telling yourself about yourself, to me, that doesn't seem tied directly to determinism or free will. It just kind of is, right? That script in your head about who Phoenix is kind of is just there. And so for me, my question is, how does that, if you agree with that concept of identity, tie into free will or determinism? How is it impacted by that?
I think
Yeah.
That's the question I was trying to ask. I think you did a better job of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're unified in this question we want to ask you, Phoenix.
The main point is, like, the point I would make about, like, the story that you try to tell yourself is that part of it is, like, the things that you learn and, like, the things that you come to understand through experience.
Sure.
And, like, do you think that anything is, like, true?
Yeah, absolutely. What is true is what, if it comports with reality, it's true.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And
do
there are
you
things
think that if everyone knew everything that was true, they would just be the same?
like a hive mind? No, I don't.
Not exactly like a hive mind, but
That's really an interesting question.
clones.
It is. I think that because I identify your identity, I identify your identity. Let me try that again. I define identity as an ongoing narrative you're telling yourself about yourself. If those, omniscient people still had their own individual narratives, then I would think that they have individuality and they'd be different.
Yeah, but I guess my question is like, if like the what is a narrative without a character arc? Like a character arc is when you believe something that's false, and then things happen to you, and you realize that it's false.
I have never heard character arc described that way.
I think that that's definitely part of it. But it could just be things that don't really have to do with being true or false. For example, I have ADHD, right? And the way my brain works is part of my experience, and how I've experienced my life is impacted by just the fact that my brain works a certain way or is deficient in certain chemicals, or, whatever ADHD is. We're not exactly sure. So I'm not quite sure how that would become a situation where I experienced a thing and thought it was true or false and then was proven otherwise, right? That's just kind of true for me because that's my brain, but it doesn't really have to do with truth, capital T truth.
I guess I'll separate brain wiring from like narrative.
Why? So here's a better way of looking at it. We know that people have personal narratives. So it's not the question of can you have a personal narrative if it's just brain wiring. If we it's we see this personal narrative, and so we want to understand more about it. And so if we come at it as this couldn't be possible, then it takes the fact that we're observing it out of the question, and we shouldn't. We should recognize that people have narratives about themselves that they tell themselves.
Yeah, but I guess that's a misunderstanding of the question in the sense that my question isn't that do we have these narratives? It's like, are these narratives I guess true? Do they matter?
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. They matter to you, don't they?
Well, yeah.
The prior caller's was it the prior? Yeah, the prior caller's dog means a whole lot more to them than you mean to them.
Yeah.
And, people who are close to you hold you in, higher regard than probably the last caller. It's assigned by us. I think what that kind of begs the question of who needs to give you value for you to feel that value is worthwhile? Does it need to be an outside, not human source? Because if that's the case, you might have set yourself up for failure, because how could you ever get it? But if we are the ones who designate value and give that value, then that is where it comes from. There is no higher, more valid degree of value than that. At which point, we view ourselves, we give that meaning and that value. And that is fantastic. I personally, I think that's as high as it gets.
I guess that I don't really see it as tied necessarily to a higher being. Although, I understand that I've been conditioned to see it that way, and so that's kind of part of what's sort of residual.
I do,
but
that is. I'm sorry, Phoenix. That is exactly what I had to deal with. So, you're playing my song.
But I guess I wonder, if you think, do you think that if utopia existed, then people would I don't know, just not care anymore?
So I think that it totally depends. If people are, people change the way they value things. So I think your example of if utopia existed, if everyone stopped valuing the things around them because they're just in perfect bliss, then who knows? But I don't think we need to really worry about that so much, because we're in this world, in this reality, and that's good enough. If literally no one gave value to you except for you. That's the most important one.
Yeah.
So
there's also something to consider, which is humans are kind of, we have evolved to solve problems, right? That is kind of what we do. That's what our brains do. Whether or not that's, our choice or not is kind of up in the air, but that's kind of just what brains do. And there is a chemical reaction to problems that spikes that desire to fix things, right? And that helps us to survive. For somebody who is unhoused, that problem is very big, and that spike of adrenaline to solve that problem is something that is not existent for somebody who has a home. But if you have a home, then that spike happens when you lose power, and you have to solve that. Or if you live in a mansion, it spikes when you have to figure out, oh no, all of my service people quit and I have to figure out how to hire more. Or so there is no situation, even in a quote unquote utopia, where our brains would actually not be wired to solve problems and feel those feelings of anxiety and need to make something happen, because that's just how we're wired. So I think that a large part of what we call our identity is, what kinds of problems have we solved? What kinds of problems are we good at solving or bad at solving? And what problems are coming down the pike, and how do we feel capable of solving those? And so regardless of where you're at, whether you're somebody who is solving basic needs problems like getting food on the table, or somebody who doesn't have to worry about that, the brain doesn't differentiate really. It just kind of exists and freaks out and reacts. So I don't think that solving, this is like weirdly fatalistic, but I don't think a utopia would fix that. And I think that because of that, the identity piece would still exist.
You know what? You're absolutely right. The way that I've always described it as a volume. If you're going through a really, really heavy point in your life, you turn down the volume. You're less upset about things. You're living in a war zone. I've seen videos of people laughing and the bombs are going off. A sniper fire, you can hear it. And they're just enjoying their lives because they don't have a choice. They've kind of turned the volume to match. And their anxieties, such that they could function. And people keep cranking the knob depending on where they're at.
Right.
And so you're right. I don't think my anxiety would go away. I would just find things to be anxious about.
Yeah, it's just how the brain works.
Yeah.
Oh,
that sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of weird and terrible. But we do need to move on because we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, this has been an awesome conversation, though.
Good. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Phoenix, thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Bye.
And this is your reminder to smash that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We'd love to see it. It helps the algorithm. How's that sound? Was that forced?
That was good.
It was super
good.
forced.
I'm in love with the number of people commenting on the outfit I'm wearing. For those of you who missed it, it's spring and I feel like I want to be on a beach, so I'm wearing the springiest thing I had in my closet.
I'm going to make you a painkiller after this episode.
I want a painkiller so bad.
Yeah? Or like a pina colada?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.